folks, I'm Barry Smith, and welcome to my show, Off-Grid Behaviors, where being abnormal is highly acceptable. What I want to accomplish on this show is learning more about homesteading and off-grid. What's the difference? What are the... Hopefully we can find that out together. I started this quest about 3 years ago. Probably more, actually. It's when I went on a camping trip with my granddaughter's Girl Scout group. It reminded me of those days when I was in the country at my grandparents' house and going fishing with my father. Just being out inside nature. I say that because I'm currently a high school teacher and I spend most of my day inside of a classroom. No light coming in. I work in the studio, so there's no windows in my room. So I started taking walks during my lunch period to get more light because after school I had other things to do as well. Family duties, trying to support kids in games, basketball, football, soccer, track, volleyball, softball, you name it. I was there doing photography and videography. And it was fun, but it can burn you out. And that's what happened to me. So I wanted to find another way to get some type of relief, if you will, without hanging out in bars or clubs or anything like that. So it reminds me how I spent summers at my grandparents' house. They had small livestock. They had chickens. I remember having to shuck corn and peas and other things that they grew. There was no outdoor plumbing. There was no indoor plumbing. Everything came from a well. And that water tastes very good. She didn't have a wash machine. We did everything by hand. Washed clothes and hung them out to dry. We took baths in a foot tub. No showers. Wood had to be chopped for heat and for cooking. Kind of reminds me of things like on Little House on the Prairie, a show I watched when I was a kid, and I really loved it. The whole Ingalls, which also reminds me of, although people did homesteading back then, being 100% self-sufficient is somewhat difficult. They still had to go to the general store in town, which was a thing for them. So let's fast forward 10 years or so, when I joined the Navy and traveled across the country on board a tin can is what they called it. My trade was an electrician, so I got a chance to learn a lot about generators and power, which helps me understand a little bit more about living off grid when it comes to solar panels, batteries, and using propulsion for things that I use out here off grid. Furthermore, traveling to different countries helped me appreciate what we have in the United States. The basic thing, whereas in some countries might seem to be a luxury. Let's say running water, electricity, schools, and just a decent roof over your head. So how did I get to this part? After that camping trip with my granddaughter, it took me probably 2 years of talking about it, thinking about it, taking this solo trip because I knew many people around me probably weren't going to go. But if you know anything about camping, it can be somewhat expensive to start up. I mean, you can go cheap, but that's not something I want to do. You can get a small single camping tent. You can get a small styrofoam cooler to put your food in, but that's not comfortable. And yeah, pack a couple sandwiches and some snacks. What about dinner? What about breakfast? Yeah, you can get by for a day, maybe two. But there's no fun in that if you plan on doing this for long periods of time. I bought some things new off Facebook. I bought some things new and used. All right. The tent was probably the big start. Of course, I used what I already had, some blankets, pillows, and other comforter items that I could use without having to buy things initially. You wanted something nice like a good mattress pad, which I found out later. And that's why I no longer tent camp. Sleeping on the ground is probably not for me. And I ended up buying a camper and I also ended up building an enclosed trailer camper. So the initial cost, buying a nice cooler, not a $300 one, but I spent over $100 for this cooler. Kept stuff cold for several days, 5, 6, 7 days. Of course, you need to freeze it too if you plan on being out for long periods of time. Buying things like batteries and tarps for the ground, shoes, and a portable power block to keep electronics charged, even a portable toilet. So was this overkill? No. Not for me, because I knew this is what I wanted to do for long periods of time. In future episodes, I'll discuss a little bit more about my first solo camping trip and how I got into leasing this land off grid. As for next weekend, I'm going to be going to a homesteading conference. The first annual conference held in Augusta, Georgia by Augusta Locally Grown. So here at the end of February, I'm going to start getting the land prepared for crops in the spring, summer grow. Some of the things that I enjoyed growing a couple of years ago when I wasn't too busy were squash, okra, cucumbers did very well. I had a small tomato plant, but it got robbed by a deer, rabbits or something. But this year, I'm going to close all this stuff off and get to it. I bought a used tiller and I tilled the ground up. But of course, last year I didn't do anything because I traveled most of last summer and I was finishing graduate school. And I'm proud of myself for that. Did a lot last year. Did a lot of traveling and finished that degree up. One thing I suggest is when you start gardening or whatever it is, start growing things that you really enjoy. Do the research and grow the thing that you know you're going to use. I took a class online and I found out, a little bit more about gardening, which I didn't know. And it is a steep learning curve. I started out by putting things in raised garden boxes. I haven't put anything into the ground yet. Although I did till the ground, I didn't do anything with it because I didn't have any water out there. That was also a struggle, bringing water into the facility, which made things more difficult. Hopefully at this convention this weekend, I'll learn a little bit more about capturing water, as I do have 2 of those 275-gallon drums out there, but those things are heavy to lug around if you don't have a trailer big enough. So it's just work to do more work. But this summer, I will do more experimenting with that and how to get water to the facility, as I don't own the land. So doing a well would not be something that's beneficial for me at this time until I get my own land. As a school teacher, that first week in April, we enjoy spring break. So I will be going to Puerto Rico, getting out of town. I'm thankful for that because where I live, my primary residence is less than 2 miles from the Augusta National. That is the big golf tournament that's held every year. So we're out of school for a week, 8 days actually. I will not miss the traffic or anything in this area, but I will be enjoying myself in Puerto Rico, get a chance to get some great content, learn more about that culture, and relax. Once we get back from Puerto Rico, we'll have about a month left in school. So as May comes in, hopefully I have some stuff into the ground. Some stuff that usually takes maybe 50, 60 days to actually grow. So that is something I'm definitely looking forward to. And this summer, I'll plant some crops that I know I like and are popular in this area. I thought I was going to try to grow some stuff that I could sell, but it's very time consuming. And the plot of land that I'm using is massive. But I am considering actually splitting some of that land out and sharing with others so they can come out and have the experience as well. Some of the classes I'm going to be taking at the conference include capturing water, building, raised beds, and creating a compost bin. The possibilities of networking should be huge, meeting people in the industry from all over the place, and maybe we can share some ideas and stay in contact. I'm going to leave that link in the description of this podcast so you can take a look at that link and some other videos that I've done as well. So until next time, I'm going to leave 2 words with you. Get lost.